I want to welcome everybody to the December 2nd Metropolitan Area Planning Commission meeting. Could we have our public announcement?
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. For those in attendance, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representatives to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. All speakers at the podium, please remove your face mask before speaking into the microphone. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking, but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please provide your contact information to the Planning Department. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on all the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as courteous and concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available from the planning staff. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to the district court.
Thank you. First item is a roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Bill Johnson?
Present.
Fox?
Here.
McKay?
Here.
Gross?
Present.
Green?
Here.
Jewell?
Here.
Blick? Nix?
Here.
Foster?
Here.
Warren?
Present.
Joe Johnson? Miles?
Present.
Hartman?
Here.
Florence?
Here.
I show 12 members present, sir.
Thank you. And again, if one of you that's virtual would leave, please let us know so we get the voting right, please. First item will be to approve the prior MAPC meeting minutes of November 18th.
I move for approval.
May I ask if the one correction that was necessary was made?
It will be made for the final copy going on the record.
Thank you.
Second.
Got a motion by
Mr. Chairman, I have
approved.
to
Got a
abstain.
second? Mr. McKay?
I have to abstain.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So it'll be 11-0-1. Okay, we're going to go through the items on the agenda to see which ones we can take on consent. The first one is item 2.1, subdivision 2021-00015. It's a final, one-step final plat for Conejo Industrial District, a second edition. Anybody on the commission want to hear this item? Any commissioners virtual want to hear this item? Anybody in the chamber here want to hear this item? Anyone virtual want to hear this item? Hearing none, we'll take that on consent. Next one, subdivision 2021-00047, final plat Wichita 23604 addition. Anyone on the commission want to hear this item? Any of the members, council members, virtual want to hear this item? Anybody in the chamber want to hear this item? Anybody virtual? Seeing none, we'll take that on consent. I should have announced before we started that subdivision 2021-00048 has been put on hold, and we will hear this at a later date. Also, item 2.5, subdivision 2021-00050 has also been deferred to a later date. And is that all of them that was deferred?
Yes, sir. For the subdivision items, that's correct.
Okay. Sorry about that. 2.4, final plat, overlay preliminary plat, Rendrick, third edition. Anybody on the commission want to hear this case? Seeing none, how about any members of the commission virtual that want to hear it? Anybody in the chamber here want to hear this case? Anybody virtual want to hear this case? We can take that on consent. The next one will be 2021-00051, final plat Charles Jean Acres. Anybody on the count or chamber want to hear this? Commission? Anybody virtual in commission want to hear this case? Anybody in the chamber here want to hear this case? Anybody virtual want to hear this case? We'll take that on consent. Subdivision 00053, Elm Street addition. Anybody on the commission want to hear this case? Any of the commission that's virtual want to hear this case? Anybody in the commission chambers here want to hear that case? Anybody virtual want to hear that case?
Commissioner Blake, I just had a quick question. Was there any opposition over this that called in or emailed?
Neil Stroll, planning staff. There has been no opposition to this plat.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve items 2.1, 2.2, 2.4, 2.6, and 2.7.
Second.
Got a motion to approve. Got a second?
I think Mr. Nick seconded.
Yeah, it's either
Okay.
Hicks, I guess. Nix. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody, anybody opposed? The next item, so we're gonna go through the agenda, and once we get through the agenda, we need to go to the BZA. Vacation case 2021-00045. Anybody on the commission want to hear this case? Anybody virtual on the commission want to hear this case? Anybody in the chamber here want to hear that case? Anybody virtual? Want to hear that case? Take that on consent?
Yes.
Oops.
But, who, please give us your name.
My name's Richard H. Van Tassel Jr.
Okay, we'll hear this case.
Thank you.
Vacation case 2021-00046.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
We've received a request to defer that item from the
Okay.
applicant.
I had that down and I scratched it didn't, so okay, that will be deferred. 3.3, vacation case 2021-00047. Request to vacate a portion of a platted front yard setback. Anybody on the commission want to hear this case? Anybody virtual that's a commissioner want to hear this case? Anybody in the chamber want to hear this case? Anybody virtual want to hear this case? We can take that on consent.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve item 3.3.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Green, second by Ms. Foster. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, the next one's 2021-00051, and there's going to be some additional staff comments on that. So I'm going to say we're going to hear that.
Well, sir, if you like, we have a staff update on that one. And I'm going to turn to Kirk to provide you with that update, if you don't mind, sir, before you consider it.
Oh, that's right.
Good afternoon. Kirk Sponsel, Assistant County Counselor. In reviewing the staff report for this case, it was indicated in the conformance to plans and policies that this is within the urban growth area for the city of Goddard, and it was further indicated in the staff report that the City of Goddard's Planning Commission will review this case at its meeting on December 13th, 2021. This is of some concern based on our own code, in which case I'm referencing Article 5B. That's going to be Article 5B4D, Notice to Other Cities. And if I may just read it, for applications or proposals involving specific property located within the zoning area of influence of any city of the second or third class within Sedgwick County, the planning director shall send notice of the application to the planning commission of such city. The planning commission of that city may then hold a public hearing and may make a recommendation to the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission based on the criteria for review established for the subject application type. The planning commission of the other city shall make its recommendation to the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission on or before the scheduled date of the public hearing before the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. The lack of a recommendation by the other city's planning commission on or before the scheduled date of the hearing before the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission shall be construed as a recommendation for approval of the application or proposal. There's been indication that they are planning on hearing this, but based on the text of our code, it's indicated that we should take their silence at this juncture as approval of the application or proposal. I do have some concerns about this, whether we're superseding their ability to hear the case and make their own recommendations to the commission.
So, sir, in light of that information, if I may, I'd like to recommend that that item be deferred to the next MAPC meeting, and that will give enough time for Goddard to hear it at the time at which the planning for the Goddard Planning Commission to hear it at the time that they've allotted for it.
Thank you.
Yes, that would be great.
Defer. Second.
Motion by Mr. Warren, second by Mr. Green to defer this case. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next case is 2021-00052. Allow accessory apartment property zone SF20. Anybody on the commission want to hear this case? Any of the commissioners that are virtual, do they want to hear this case? Anybody in the chamber want to hear this case? Anybody virtual want to hear this case? Hearing none, we can take that on consent. 4.3, 2021-00053. City condition use to permit a vehicle or an equipment sales on LC light commercial zoning. Anybody on the commission want to hear this case?
Mr. Chairman, under the circumstances of the letter that we received from the homeowner association, we probably ought to hear it.
Let's hear that case. 4.4, 2021-00054. Permit expansion of an existing substation. Additional information on this is the plating requirement. Go ahead.
Yes, sir, if we could, we'd like to do a quick staff update for
Okay.
you, just so you can know about
All
some
right.
recent
We'll hear
circumstances
that
with
one.
it.
Next one's 2021-00062. Permit a restaurant, bar, entertainment area. This is on South Seneca and Kellogg. Anybody on the commission want to hear this case?
Yes.
We'll hear that one. Next one's 2021-00048. Zoning change from SF5 to TF3. It's 2439 West 3rd Street North. Anybody on the commission want to hear this case? Any commissioners virtual want to hear this case? Anybody in the chamber want to hear this case? Anybody virtual want to hear this case?
Yes, please.
We'll hear that case. Next one's 4.7, 2021-00049. City zone change from single family to general office. It's on east side of North Rock Road. Anybody on the chamber or on the commission want to hear this case? How about any members of the commission that are virtual want to hear this case? Anybody in the audience want to hear this case? Anybody virtual want to hear this case? Take that on consent. Uh, 4.8, 2021-00050. City zone change from LC to general commercial. 3623 West Maple Street. Anybody on the commission want to hear this case? Any commissioners that are virtual, do you want to hear this case? Anybody present in the chamber here want to hear this case? Anybody virtual? Take that on consent. Next one's 4.9, zoning case 2021-00051. Change from SF5 to MF18. Anybody on the commission want to hear this case? Any of the commissioners virtual want to hear this case? Anybody here in the commission chamber want to hear this case? We'll hear that case. Next one's 4.10, 2021-00052. Zoning change from SF5 to MF18. Anybody on the commission want to hear that one? Okay. look for a motion to approve the consent ones.
Move we approve 4.2, 4.7, and 4.8 as per staff comments.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Foster, second by Mr. Warren. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, we're going to leave the planning commission meeting and go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And the first item on that, we need to approve the minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion approved by Ms. Foster, second by Hartman. Any discussion?
I have to abstain. Yes.
Okay.
So is Blake.
And Mr. Blick.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? 10-02.
I believe 1102, with the addition of Mr. Blick joining the meeting.
Okay. Okay, the first item.
Kathy Morgan for the Planning Department. This case is request to reduce the street side yard setback from 15 feet to 6 feet. And this is for, yes, please go through the maps. This is in College Hill. It's adjacent to single-family duplex. The brown hatched lot to the east is the Allen House Museum. And go to the next slide, please. This is the aerial. You can see the garage on the east end of the property, and the request is to allow the in-ground swimming pool between the garage and the fence that surrounds the property. Next, please. You can see the future growth map indicates this is in residential, and it's in solidly established residential, so it does conform to the community investments plan. Next. This is the site plan that the applicant submitted, and as you can see, they had to keep the separation between the existing garage and where they wanted to locate the in-ground swimming pool. There really wasn't an option to put it on the south side of the garage. Next, please. This is looking southeast at the property. You can see the house there in front, and then you can, on the left, you see the fence, the privacy fence, and there is a mechanized iron gate that secures the property. The front yard is open. They have fencing from the corners of the house all the way around the property. Next. And this is looking southwest at the house. As I said, you can see on the left side the garage, the fence along 2nd Street, and the mechanized security gate. Next. Another photograph of that garage and the security gate. Next. Next. This is a close-up looking through the gate at the location where the pool will be, and as you can see, the Allen Lamb House behind it. That's actually the garage of the Allen Lamb House property. Next. This is directly north from the subject site, typical College Hill residential lot next. This is looking east from the subject site. You see the privacy fence there on the right next. And this is the house that is northwest, at the northwest corner of the intersection. There again, it's another typical two-story College Hill residence next. So in evaluating the 5 criteria for granting a variance, the applicant did submit a letter to support their request for the variance, and the staff would support or recommend, find that the variance does meet the 5 conditions required to grant a variance. The recommendation would be that the reduction setback only apply to the swimming pool, and the applicant has to obtain all permits per city code. And I'll
Any
stand for any
questions?
questions.
Go ahead.
Kathy, I noticed that there's, the proposed pool location is, approximately 6 feet east of the, or excuse me, 6 feet west of the east property line?
Yes,
And that 6 foot is
that would be the rear setback, and so,
the side yard
yeah,
setback?
yes.
Will this variance, did you take into consideration the garage that's there, that's in the 6 foot setback, or did they get a?
They didn't, that would be a non-conforming use. This house was built in 1919, and the garage is of the same age. So if at any time in the future they replace the garage, then they would have to meet the current setbacks.
Any other questions of Kathy? Thank you, Kathy. Applicant or agent?
Ready?
Is there anybody who want to speak on this item here in the chamber? Anybody virtual want to talk on this item? Seeing none, I think we could have took this on consent, but
Mr. Chairman,
I look for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve. I have a question before that. Scott, do we need a legal description of the area that we're talking about rather than just say?
Good question. I'll defer to Kathy on that one.
They have a measured site plan, so we haven't, it's been my experience in the past that it's not a platted setback, so we haven't required a specific legal description for the portion of the structure that is encroaching into the setback. If it were platted, yes, they would have to submit a legal description.
The reason I asked the question, because we're just approving the change on the area where the pool's at.
That's correct.
So would you want to put the would you want to say all property east of the driveway? That's all I'm looking for.
The recommendation says that the variance applies only to the in-ground swimming pool.
Still make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
And quick clarifying question, as part of that motion to approve, I assume that you're finding that all 5 necessary conditions are found to exist. Okay.
Motion was approved by Mr. McKay, second by Mr. Hartman. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Approved 12-0.
I've got 13-0, sir.
Oh, 13. We're gaining. Next item.
Good afternoon, Matt Williams. If we go to some of the photos, the applicant is requesting a variance to permit the placement of a single-wide mobile home on property zoned SF20, single-family residential. This would deviate from the zoning code's regulation that only residentially designed manufactured homes be placed in the unincorporated county. The subject site currently has what you see in front of you as a large garage structure, a driveway, and a recently placed mobile home. This photo you're actually looking at is from July of 2012 when a previous mobile home was on the site. The applicant has stated that in this photo, that previous mobile home had been on site for several years but had been removed a few years back. The surrounding properties are primarily single-family with several mobile homes located within 2 blocks west and 2 blocks north of this location. Staff finds that granting this variance will not adversely affect the rights of adjacent property owners or the public interest. When it comes to uniqueness, staff finds that while there may be enough space on site for a residentially designed manufactured home, there is a large presence of mobile homes in the area. Staff also finds that granting this variance would not be opposed to the general spirit and intent of the code. So should the board approve the variance, we recommend conditions of approval along with that are found in your staff report. If we can go through these photos.
Any questions? Oh, you want? It's all right. Go ahead.
Next photo. So here's a site plan that was included with the application. You can see off of West Street and Gustafson Street, there's an existing garage with that mobile home to the north of that. Next slide. Next slide. Go forward too. Next slide. So here's an aerial of the site. Next slide. This is showing it within the future growth concept map. Next slide. Next slide. Can you show the photos of the surrounding area? There we go. So here's looking northwest at the site. Next slide. Here is a property south of that site. Here's a property to the west with another mobile home. Next slide. It's another shot of the site looking north, so I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Matt? Thank you, Matt. Applicant or agent? Please give us your name and address, please. You have 10 minutes.
Steve Moeller, 2511 East Fairchild Street, Park City, Kansas. I want the commission to know that I personally have no interest in this site. I purchased it for my grandson, who is a Sedgwick County firefighter. He's a new Sedgwick County firefighter. His father owns the property, and he grew up in that area. His father owns the property to the south of it, and he wanted to be in that area. He was going to purchase it himself, but because he's 21 years old without any kind of a financial history, without a residence on it, he couldn't get financing. So I purchased it for him. And I purchased it for him, giving him the understanding, mistakenly, that he could place that mobile home on there. And so he purchased that mobile home and moved it in, and then we came to find out that it actually couldn't be there. The home itself is a lot nicer home than any other in the area. It will improve actually the property values of the area. he wanted the property for the garage because he's a welder. He does that on the side, and so he wanted the property for that reason, and also because he did grow up in the area, and his father owns the property just adjacent to it. So I'd ask that you just take that into consideration. The footprint of this mobile home is identical to the footprint of the mobile home that had existed there for 30 plus years. And all the utilities are in place. Matt said that though there may be space for a double wide, there really is not, because the lateral field is in that back area, the open area. That's the lateral field for the septic, and so you can't place one over the top of the lateral field. And so, anyway, that's all I have to say. And I thank the commission for their time.
1 second. Any
Yes.
questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak on this item?
Somebody back there.
Please come forward and give us your name and address.
Yes, sir. Charles Jones. I live at 4100 West 56th Street North, Wichita, Kansas. And is it time for me to speak? The only thing I'm saying that everybody in the whole neighborhood that I have talked to and they have got a complaint about is a pitch roof. The roof does not have a pitch roof on it. The Sedgwick County Enforcement Code says that they have to have a pitch roof on them and a permanent foundation. And that's the only thing I got to say. You know, he's welcome to have a home in there, but put the right home in it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any questions of the speaker? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak on this item?
I would. I'm on the line.
Give us your name and address, please.
Hi, my name's Jake Cohen. I live at 5547 Northwest Street.
Go ahead.
I haven't met Charlie myself and haven't spoken to him about it, but I will say that I am aware of the intent of this property going to Braden Muller. He's a good kid, and I endorse him doing it, especially knowing the history that this trailer has been there. That's all I have to say is, as a neighbor and someone in the community, I think it improves it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else virtual want to speak on this item?
Yes, I would like to speak.
Your name?
Hello?
Your name again?
Yes, Sandra Block, B-L-U-N-C-K. And I have lived at 5717 Northwest Street for almost 30 years. I'm just right down the street from this mobile home.
Go ahead.
And I realize the property has good intention of moving someone in that is well known to the neighborhood. I understand that. But rules and regulations are there for a reason. And I feel like if I have to abide by them, so does everyone else. And whether you have good intentions, whether the person is a great person or not, that's not the issue. The issue is the trailer was moved in, it's illegal. That should right there warrant it not being permitted. My house burnt down to the ground almost. In 2007, we lost everything. We tried to move in a fifth wheel as temporary housing, and we were not granted that by the county because we were not the owners of the fifth wheel. So we lived in a FEMA trailer with my 5-year-old and 10-year-old for 6 months. per regulations of the county. Like I said, I do believe if I'm entitled to have something on my property and it's legal, that's fine. If it does not meet the standards of the county, this is not a trailer park. It's gradually turning into one. Yes, there are a lot of trailers out here, and I do believe Steve and Brenda do own another double wide out here as well. They own several properties out here. I don't know if the property that they've purchased over there is in the young man's name or not. Regulations are there for a reason, and that's all I have to say.
Any questions of the speaker?
Thank you.
Seeing none, is there anyone else virtual would like to speak? Seeing none, the applicant, you got 2 minutes of rebuttal if you want.
Yes, excuse me, I'm sorry. Yes, Charlie said that he had talked to everyone in the neighborhood, and there were those that were opposed. I have actually talked to everyone in the neighborhood, and 80% of them were willing to come here today, and I asked them not to because of the COVID and all such. They are all for it. There are only 2 people against it, and you just heard from both of them. And that is a fact. So I want you to know that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant?
Yeah, I have one. What is the age of that, the trailer you're trying to move in?
I'm sorry?
Age of the mobile home.
It is, like I said, my grandson purchased it. I know that it falls within the range of those that can be moved and can be set. It's not a code violation as far as moving it. I believe it is a 98. I believe that's right. But it's been completely reconditioned. It's got new roof. The thing was completely reconditioned before he purchased it. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize that I left before questions.
Any other questions of the agent or applicant? Thank you, sir.
Yes.
We'll bring it back for
I've got a question for staff. Matt, you said that there, and I looked at the aerial, the most recent aerial, and it did indicate some other mobile homes, single-wide mobile homes in the area. Do any of those have have they been granted a variance, and do they have permission to be there?
I don't have the fact on if any of them have been granted a variance. I know that they're all old enough that they're probably all non-conforming structures. And so they're allowed to be, they're legal, non-conforming, they've just been there long enough. And the mobile home that used to be on site was a legal non-conforming structure. It's just because it's been removed for so long, putting another one on now requires it to be in alignment with the code.
I'd like some clarification from the county attorney. Is, in fact, the fact that it has a flat roof and it's apparently not, is it not on a foundation?
It hasn't been placed on a foundation yet because it's just been basically pulled up and put on the property waiting. My understanding is waiting to get the proper permits to make it permanent. Okay. But one of the conditions of approval in the staff report is that it complies with section 3D.6.1L, and that's in our zoning code, and it will require it to be placed on a permanent foundation, provide handrails on the outside stairs. It does not require it to have a pitched roof.
Okay, that's for residential design, correct? So the pitched roof is not a legal requirement. No. Is that correct?
It won't be with the approval of this variance. I believe that residentially designed manufactured homes have to have a pitched roof.
Yeah. Okay, I think that clarifies it for me. Thank you.
Any other questions? What's the pleasure of the commission?
I'd like to make a motion, given that the 5 criteria for a variance have been approved. I'd like us to approve the application for a variance subject to the recommendations in the staff report.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Foster, second by Ms. Miles. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Who was that?
Blick.
Blick?
Yes.
Sir, can I get some clarification? Was, Mr. Blick, was that a vote in favor of the motion or against the motion?
Denial.
Thank you.
There's no other stuff with the BZA, correct?
That is correct, sir.
So we can go back to the planning commission. .1, vacation case 2021-00045.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Stephen Banks, Planning Department. Vacation 2021-45 is a request to vacate the platter's text for Reserve J of Willow Bend First Edition. This is to allow for development of an office building. According to the plat, Reserve J is for construction and maintenance of public utilities, drainage and open spaces, and shall be owned and maintained by the homeowners association. Once the platter's text is vacated, new platter's text will be used to support development of an office building on Reserve J in addition to the previous specified uses. There are public sewer and stormwater utilities in the subject reserve. Willow Bend First Edition was recorded in May of 1986. Evergy has no objection to the platter's text, but does say that if they do have lines in the right-of-way of Rock Road, should those need to be relocated, it would be at the owner's expense. If you go to the next slide, this shows the utilities, the stormwater and sewer utilities within the reserve area. Rock Road is on the west side there. Next slide. This is showing a preliminary sketch of the idea to place an office building or buildings on that east side of Rock Road. However, I will advise that this is showing access to Rock Road, but there is no access available according to the plat on Rock Road, and they have not asked to vacate the access there. Next slide. This is showing the Reserve J in the overall context of the plat for Willow Bend First Edition. The drainage for the project has been submitted to Stormwater, and they have accepted it. And other than that, I'll stand for questions.
Any questions? Staff? Seeing none, thank you. Applicant or agent, please.
Good afternoon. Phil Meyer with Baughman Company, agent for the applicant. Also with me here today is Bob Kaplan, who is agent for the applicant. And I believe Maury Sheets may be in the audience, who is the applicant. I think Stephen did a great job of presenting this. We are looking to develop this property for office uses. The zone change was for GO, general office, so that limits the type of development that can occur on this site. As we mentioned, our site plan did show a drive to Rock Road. We did not file that vacation case at this time. We do have access to Thorn Street, and we can develop this site with that access. If we choose at a later date to get access to Rock Road, we will file a vacation case on that. But like I pointed out at the subdivision committee, this is the concept plan. Not guaranteeing you that's exactly how the final office building is going to look, but that is the final use for this as an office facility. With that, I'll answer any questions planning commissioners may have, or can answer homeowners' questions later.
Any questions, applicant? Agent? Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Did Mr. Kaplan want to say anything or not?
You have to see it to appreciate it. Beyond that, I have no comment.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the chamber would like to speak on this item? Anybody here want to speak on this item? Anybody virtual want to speak on this item?
Yes, I would like to speak virtual.
Give us your name and address, please. You got 3 minutes.
My name's Richard H. Van Tassel. I live at 4006 Jasmine. I was notified of this by mail because I'm in a certain, my property is within a certain distance of this property at the corner of Thorn Drive and Rock Road. This property's been platted as a separate lot since the inception of Willow Bend. When the buildings were sold, the office buildings were sold in 2019, the current owners did not buy this lot. When Renner Center acquired this lot in 1987, they were required by special warranty deed to never build any type of building on this lot and to maintain it in a park-like environment. Obviously, they don't own it anymore. Since 1999, I guess, the property was owned by an outfit in Texas. It was recently acquired by the people in Wichita in February of 2021 who have not maintained this property. Numerous trees and landscape on this property are out of compliance with city ordinance. It's nothing but a blight in this part of the city. I'm not for sure why that is the case. I am pleased to hear that the gentleman that spoke before me has said there is some doubt that they would open an entrance onto Rock Road. I would be opposed to that. Rock Road is dangerous enough the way it is. Any development on this property should empty onto Thorn Drive. There should be landscaping that should be required of these people, and they should maintain it, especially since it's local ownership. None of that's been done this summer. The change to general office opens it up to a multitude of uses. What's it going to be? What will it be next year? What will that property be used for in 10 years? How will it affect the appearance of this part of Northeast Wichita?
Anything else, sir?
In addition, that is a retention pond. There's massive amounts of water that flow through that pond during numerous rainstorms that occur throughout the years in Wichita, which we've all experienced. That water flows out of the north end of that pond, under the golf course, under Rock Road, and through Willow Bend, and out of Willow Bend. Nothing should be done to change the shape of that, or to of that retention pond, or to put it at risk of not being large enough.
Thank you, sir.
You have to be out here to, thank you.
Any questions, speaker? Mr. Warren?
Yes, sir, just, you brought up a number of questions, but I'm not really sure where you stand. Are you in favor or opposed to this application?
I'd like the lots maintained. I'd like the property maintained. I'd prefer it be a park-like environment. I'd have to see how they want to develop it. You know, it comes out in the paper yesterday, or the Wichita Business Journal, that they've got this concept, but I certainly wasn't notified of that when these documents were sent to me, but it's obvious to me they knew about it.
Thank you.
So it depends what it is.
All right. Thank you. Is there anyone else want to speak on this item? Anybody else want to speak on this item? Applicant, agent has rebuttal time.
Thank you. I want to start with, there is absolutely no correlation between this application and any information that was in the news yesterday about the property east of Quick Trip. I know the owner got a hold of me this morning and wanted to make sure that I did present that to you, that there is no correlation. That's just a coincidence on timing. And we had no idea that before we read it in the paper, as did the planning commissioners and neighbors. The office development, you know, the office is appropriate at this location, in my opinion. We did not ask for limited commercial or other uses. With the redevelopment of this site, which is the reason our owners, present owners, did purchase it, we can put a nice facility here that fits into the neighborhood, fits into the location. Property will be maintained from that point forward. The city does have a landscape ordinance which will handle landscaping that will occur with the site development. With that, we did do a drainage analysis. We are not filling this lake, have no intention to, and we proved or showed the city drainage engineer that our redevelopment has no negative impact on the existing drainage system that occurs. And all this stuff drains to the north, northwest, and through Willow Bend, as the neighbor said. So with that, I think this development will be positive for the area, and we'll answer any questions that planning commissioners may have.
Any questions, agent? Seeing none, bring it back to commission. What's the favor of the board?
Make a motion we approve subject to staff comments.
Second.
Got a motion approved by Mr. McKay, second by Ms. Foster. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Thank you. Next item. Now, did we take care of item 4.1? Okay. 4.3. That's 00053. Permit vehicle equipment sales, 3357 North Ammonin.
Good afternoon, Planning Commission. Philip Zievenbergen with planning staff. I just want to make you aware of the email that is at your desk. I emailed it to you this morning. It was information we received late yesterday afternoon from the Benjamin Hills Pleasant Valley Neighborhood Association. Just want to make sure you were aware of it for your consideration in this case. Conditional use 2153 is a conditional use request for vehicle and equipment sales located on the west side of North Ammonin, about a half mile north of West 29th Street, just south of the drainage floodway there at the corner of Ammonin and Womer. The applicant wishes to open, as he described, a family car dealership for used cars at the location. The site is unlimited commercial, and vehicle and equipment sales is permitted by conditional use in limited commercial zoning. If you want to go to the aerial is a little out of date from the current conditions. The property to the north has been redeveloped to a Dollar General store, so there's significant additional paving, and the retail store is in this area. Part of that redevelopment, this drive still exists and is the drive to Dollar General, which you'll see in the site photos, but the parking lots no longer connect to each other. So access to this third drive is not there. Not necessarily an issue or germane, but just wanted to make sure that was addressed. If you go to the site plan, the reason we bring this up is on the site plan, north is going this way to the right. Though they're angled this way, those spaces could be used for display parking. His site plan shows meets the requirement of the parking requirement in the spaces over here, where you have the proper circulation between the two drives on his property. The part of the parking lot that's over this way, that dead ends into the new Dollar General property, though the angle is backwards to what they could actually do, they'd have to back out of the space. Those could be used for display parking. So there's no issue necessarily in site circulation. Just wanted to make that note on there. Also on the aerial, those portable storage containers are no longer on the site. They just happened to be on the site the last time, Google or whoever took site pictures from satellite view. So those portable storage containers are no longer there. The Unified Zoning Code provides a list of supplementary use regulations on top of the zoning for vehicle sales in LC. They're in your staff report. One of them I want to make note of is that all of the areas for the storage and display of vehicles for sales have to be paved. The applicant stated that if he is granted this, possibly in the future, if business is good, could look to expand. So he would have to pave additional areas in order to expand. He can't, and it has to be with asphalt or concrete, or asphalt concrete as it says in there, or comparable hard surface material. And in order to pave that, he would also have to plat the property. So he can move in kind of as is right now and have a smaller operation. Any expansion would require additional things to be met in order for the business to expand. Additionally, I would like to note that no repair work can be conducted on the site except in an enclosed building. I believe one of the buildings does have a garage in there, and they can do kind of vehicle repair inside of a building. Vehicle repair is permitted in limited commercial, except for body work. So they could potentially be doing on that site, but it have to be done in an enclosed building. If you go to the zoning map, property to the north is zone limited commercial, and as I said before, is retail with a newly developed Dollar General. If you go actually due north across Amidon, it's general office with a family medical practice. Property to the west and to the south are zone limited commercial, but they're actually developed with residential uses. And then property to the east across Amidon is single family residential, developed with single family residences as well. The zoning code requires screening and landscaping for non-residential developments when abutting residential zoning districts. The site currently has a chain link fence along the side and the rear properties. Because of the zoning code and the landscape ordinance, the only place for solid screening and landscaping would be required on this southwest corner. If you go back to the aerial again, in this southwest corner where it meets single-family residential zoning right here, though this is residential uses, it's limited commercial zoning. And so we take care of this in conditions of approval if you move to approve this, of requiring screening and landscaping from the residential uses, even though it wouldn't be required by the zoning code. They would also, the Wichita landscape ordinance requires a landscape street yard for commercial properties abutting arterial streets. It would have to be installed on the applicant's property. And not in the street right of way. There would also need to be guards put up along the perimeter of the parking lot to make sure vehicles that are parked there don't encroach into the right of way as well. Any outdoor lighting sources have to be in compliance with the code, which is no greater than 15 feet within 200 feet of residential zoning districts. There's a significant case history on this site over the years of possible options to rezone to higher intensity zoning. So some of them were deferred, some of them were denied, and others, one was deferred in 2004, but was officially closed and void because of a failure to meet conditions of approval. So it has remained limited commercial over the years because of that. The requested conditional use is not in conformance with the community investments plan. If you go to the land use map, please. Though it identifies it as appropriate for commercial areas, the locational guidelines, it basically is for like convenience retail, restaurants, small offices, and personal services should be located close proximity and potentially mixed with residential uses. Major destinations and centers and corridors containing concentrations of commercial and office uses that have a regional market area or generally higher volumes of traffic should be located more on arterials and highways and buffered from low density uses by higher density housing or less intensive commercial uses. With the option of this potentially being able to expand, a car dealership is more considered of that higher intensity use that could increase the amount of traffic with the lower density residential that is surrounding it. In addition, a practice of planning staff when it comes to looking at whether or not a recommendation for approval or denial is looking at whether or not this is introducing a new type of use. Something we looked at as the nearest car dealership would be on North Broadway near 25th Street, over a mile away. So there is no precedent set. There is no like business in the area when it comes to car dealerships along North Amadon. The requested use is also not in conformance with the locational guidelines of the comprehensive plan for the same reasons as I just mentioned. It is outside of the established central area on this land use map. That's that blue dashed line. So the Wichita Places for People plan does not apply in this area. Staff is recommending denial for the character of the area, though it is limited commercial right now, and there's commercial to the north. This would be a higher intensity commercial when there's low density residential directly across the street and abutting to the south and the west as well. Could increase traffic in the area. There are no used car lots or car lots in general within at least a mile. And the nonconformance to the comprehensive plan. As always, we put in here that if it's in the opinion of the board that you do wish to recommend approval, you would need to provide findings for recommendation of approval, and we have conditions listed in the staff report that would become a protective overlay in the zoning ordinance should this application be approved. Those conditions are that it would only be for the sale of cars and light pickup trucks, no sale or rental of trailers, boats, or motorcycles, or recreational vehicles, or large trucks that are larger than the standard pickup. Vehicle repair has to be done inside of an enclosed building. They would have to submit a site plan and a landscape plan in order to make sure screening and landscaping are up to code. We are wanting to have additional screening on the south, even though it's commercial zoning. We'd want to screen and buffer from the residential uses that are there. And several others that are just standard language for conditions of approval. I can take you through the site pictures. This is looking south at the property. There's that chain link fence between the Dollar General and the site. But as you can see, you can look straight through the property, and right about here is a house on the south side of the property. Next picture, please. This is on the Dollar General site, but this is looking to the northeast across Amadon. This is that medical practice site that's zoned general office. Next picture. This is looking to the east at some of the residences across the street. You can see here, this is that third driveway that goes into the Dollar General, and this is the edge of their parking lot. So there's now a barrier between the two that shows it does not connect. Next picture. This is looking to the southeast. This is the parking lot of the site where customer would be parking and where display vehicles would be displayed, and you can see the residential houses directly across Amadon to the southeast. Next picture. This is looking west at the property. This is the existing building and the parking lot where the display would be. You can see the houses that are abutting to the south. Next picture. This is looking to the northwest at the new Dollar General store. This is Amadon turning into Wilmer as it goes over the floodway ditch. Next picture. And this is looking to the southwest. This is the rear of the property. There's actually a fairly decent hedgerow of mature trees on this west property line between the commercial property and the western property, which is commercially zoned but developed with residential uses. Next picture. And this is looking to the southwest again at those houses on the south side of the subject site. I think that's probably it. Yes, I can stand for any questions.
Philip,
Yeah, I have a question.
What did you say that they could sell?
They could sell cars, light pickup trucks, but no sale or rental of trailers, boats, motorcycles, scooters, or recreation vehicles, or trucks that are larger than a pickup truck.
Thank you. Somebody else had a question?
Yeah, did the DAB board review this?
It's being reviewed by DAB 6 on Monday night, December 6th, so next Monday. So we have not heard from DAB yet. I did hear a couple phone calls from neighbors last week looking for some information about the case. One is the property owner to the west. He owns the property but lives in Abilene, Texas. He wasn't necessarily overly opposed to it, but he wasn't really thrilled with the idea. I also heard from another neighbor, I think he was representing others, who were not in favor of this. The counterpoint to that is the email you received from the neighborhood association lists a fair amount of reasons why they are in support of this. So both of those are there for your guys' consideration regarding public comment.
Yeah, Philip, the property directly to the south, it is zoned limited commercial.
That is correct.
And you say that there are residences on the property. Are they actually being used as residences or as a residence, or is it being used for some other purpose? I noticed that the aerial photography that I was looking at earlier today, it showed that it was a Baha'i faith center, so it would be being used for religious purposes.
I honestly don't recall. I apologize, I don't recall off the top of my head. I believe maybe the one maybe closest to Amadon might be used for some other purpose, but there is a property kind of to the southwest of it. If you go back to the zoning map, this property here, I don't recall. It doesn't necessarily look like it's being used for something other than residential, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, and then I also noted that it appears as though directly south of that, there is a church.
Yeah, there are a fair amount of churches or places of worship.
Single family has, allows, churches to be on there. So I think with that property being adjacent to it, directly to the south, being that it's limited commercial, it kind of gives you the sense that there's going to be some development going on along that arterial. Okay, I think that was the only thing I had.
Any other questions? Staff? Thank you, Philip. Applicant and agent.
I believe I saw him online.
He's muted. There we go.
Yes, this is Jeremiah Leathers.
Your address, please.
Address 4027 North Friar Lane, Sherwood Glen Association. Thank you all for hearing this today. Just short history, I had a conditional use permit approved for my current lot, which is at 4233 West Central in October of 2020. And it was, again, zone limited commercial. It's a small lot. I can only place 4 cars there per the conditional use. And we are wanting to grow. I live in this neighborhood. We chose this property. We've actually leased to own this property currently. And we want to stay in the community. There's several other options, but we chose to be here, family-oriented, in a smaller location, not trying to do big business, keeping it small, just family-owned. We've come in immediately and already cleaned the property up. It was vacant. The last leaseor was, I would just say it's a little shady business was happening here. And, but since we've come in and installed sprinkler systems, we've cleaned the property. We have plans, but we of course are waiting to see if we can sell cars here. So that's important before we spend more funds on this property. I do know, since it's zone limited commercial, that it allows for retail, storage, and vehicle repair. So I felt and hoped that you would feel the same, that vehicle sales is very close to vehicle repair, but that's why we're here. The property to the south, I can answer that question. That property to the south has been vacant for, I've heard 30 years. I don't know that for sure, but it's been vacant and it's in disrepair. It used to be a dental office is what I was told, the front property, and then the property in the back is a multifamily building, but it's vacant, and we've already had a little trouble with squatters and homeless folks staying there. There's been some cut fences in between the properties, so I would be fine with putting up solid fencing on that side, but I just wanted to make that clear that it's not being used. It hasn't been used in years. There's nothing going on. Property to the south. On the other side of that property is the Baha'i Faith Center. So, and then the next one is the church. I did get with Miss Lee McLeod with the Neighborhood Association for Benjamin Hills and Pleasant Valley, met with them. They were very kind. Hopefully everybody has seen the letter of recommendation and approval, and I appreciate Ms. Lee writing that. I've also received another letter from a property directly across the street, 3400 North Amadon. The gentleman is happy with what he's already seen, the improvements made to the property, and he has no problem. And I have sent that to Philip. I did send that kind of late, so he might not have gotten that to everybody. I understand the commercial property right across from residence. There's concern with property values decreasing. Car dealerships are not on the top list of properties, commercial properties that would decrease values of residents. Conversely, I'd say a neglected shopping center or a vacant storefront would negatively affect property values. So I'm hoping that everyone will see that a strong commercial development can add value and improve in property values, and that's what we are committed to do. We're very detailed. We want to come in here and make the community proud. Again, family-owned, family values, Christian values. We attend church at 3840 North Seneca, which is just in our neighborhood. So we like the neighborhood of Pleasant Valley, Benjamin Hills, Sherwood Glen Association. We want to keep ourselves right here and make relationships. Future plans are many ideas, but we'll certainly wait. But I'll stand for any questions at this time.
Any questions to the applicant?
I've got a question. Bill?
Mr. Hartman?
Yes, Jeremiah, have you seen the staff comments where they've suggested 12 different items there for approval, subject to the, have you seen those?
Yes,
12?
sir.
I
have read through the staff report.
Are you in agreement with those 12?
I am in agreement. And again, I did this before, so I met all the criteria that they requested. And of course, this property was not zoned for this, so I understand that I'll be putting up fencing, landscaping, barriers to keep from the sidewalk. So I am in agreement on all those points.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Seeing no, thank you. Anybody else want to speak on this item? You're in the commission chamber? Anybody want to speak on this item? Anybody virtual want to speak on it?
Daniel Oakes would like to.
Give us your address, name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Daniel Oakes. I'm at 1717 West 33rd Street North. I am a concerned resident, lives a couple of houses to the east of the subject property. I do have a desire for the business to go in there that thrives. The neighborhood is mostly residential, as we talked about before, with a very small portion of non-residential zoning. As there have been code compliance issues with this property in the past, that is no reason for us to dive off into reducing current restrictions, because those can all be taken care of through the compliance department. With business activity that is allowed by code and associated deed restrictions for this property must result in a good neighbor. A car lot does not fill that. Here are my concerns if the conditional use permit is approved. And this is not in order of importance by any means. Home values decreasing, safety, and increased crime. Let's talk about safety. Cars being on display are a very important component for a new car business or a used car business as they're advertising their product. There will be occasions people driving down the road and gawking at what's available there and taking their mind off the road. This increases the chance of accidents occurring. It should be noted that this curved section of Amden has a long history of accidents, even one of a reported death in the past 2 weeks. We do not need anything that could increase the accident rate. Let's talk about another safety concern that I have. You're going to buy a new used car vehicle, you're going to want to take it out for a test drive. They'll probably use our neighborhood for that test drive. When you're test driving a vehicle, you're not going to be paying attention to the environment. You're looking at the stuff in the car, maybe changing the mirror, changing environmental. And it increases the chance of someone getting hit, a parked car being hit, person walking. Let's talk about the crime. A group of cars seems to draw unrespectful individuals with the intent to steal stuff. Catalytic converters seems to be popular today. Bringing these cars, aka bait, they increase the potential for these thieves to go shopping for other vehicles in the neighborhood, like mine. The applicant may choose to use area lighting as the cars are on display for outdoor advertising. Lights potentially on during all dark hours. No matter what light fixture height is prescribed by the restrictions, there will always be some type of amount of lighting that will encroach onto the residential properties. I refer to this as light pollution. We currently have more light pollution than we deserve right now. Any light pollution will be a nuisance to the neighborhood, especially those directly across from this property. Although the conditional use permit applicant may not have immediate need for this, once the conditional use permit has been approved, anyone at any time would be allowed for this nuisance to happen at this location. The property is zoned in this area, other than residential, has previously had customer clients.
Mr. Oakes, your time's up. Do you need another minute?
I'd like to have one more minute.
Okay.
One thing that is not widely known is that when the city of Wichita sells or transfer property, even a small easement, there are restrictions to the deed that basically says that no new and used car sales can ever be done on that property. There's a reason the city of Wichita does that, because they feel like detrimental to the area. With that, I request that this application be denied. Thank you.
Any questions from the commission to the speaker? Seeing none. Is there anyone else virtual want to speak on this item? Anyone else?
I would like to speak.
Okay, give us your name and address.
My name is Leslie Hicks. My address is 2230 North Cardinal Drive.
Okay, you got 3 minutes.
All right, thank you. I have a couple of comments here, and I think the one that startles me the most is to find out that my neighborhood association, Pleasant Valley, Benjamin Hills, offered support for this. I, as a resident within that area, was unaware that this had come to their attention, much less that I would be part of a neighborhood association that provided support. I would say that that letter of support probably represents very few actual residents in the area. And I'm certainly even fewer residents are aware that there was a letter of support given in this. I would actually be interested in what that letter of support says, but I'd be more interested in knowing how many residents were actually at a meeting that offered support for that. I will say that the property to the south, the one that used to be a dentist's office and is now, and does have residential activity in it in the past, I feel fairly confident that that property has been tied up for an extended period of time, an extended period of years, with an estate, and prior to that to a homeowner that was ill, that being tied up in an estate and an inability to market, sell, or develop it would really be an indication of a specific situation, not an indication that it's a poor property and that anything going in next to it would be an improvement for it. I think that maybe that concern should be very negated or discounted in this particular situation. I will also say that neighbors being happy that a property is being cleaned up is not necessarily the same and can't be equated to neighbors being happy about the type of business that might be going in there. And with that, I would say that this is a more intense use. Car sales are a more intense use than the present zoning. And as we try to stabilize our neighborhoods, as we try to maintain residential uses and retain people and promote new people moving into those neighborhoods that are getting older, that it's important that we continue to protect those boundaries and protect those infills. This is not zoned for vehicle sales. It's zoned for, I think, light commercial. I'm kind of getting confused here at the moment, but it is not zoned for the more intense use. That's why it takes a conditional use. There's obviously a market for those properties. That's why Dollar General went in. That's why people have rented. Yes.
Your time's up. Do you need more time?
Few seconds. I'll just wrap up and say that though there is a market for those properties, perhaps it's been slow, but it is there. That's shown by Dollar General going into the north. It's shown by the effort and the interest that's been done for the neighborhood office and the general office on the east side of Wilmer. I think that we have to concentrate on the importance of maintaining and protecting our residential areas. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions, Ms. Hicks? Hearing none. Is there anybody else virtual that wants to speak on this item? Anybody virtual? Bring it back to the applicant. Got 2 minutes. Rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner, and I appreciate the feedback from the neighbors. As far as I know that I have to be in compliance, and so there's not going to be any spotlight type lighting. It will be contained. I think it's 15 feet, the light poles can be, so I'll be in compliance with any issues. As far as this is a commercial property, if I wasn't to do car sales here, I mean, you know, we'd be looking at developing the property with strip malls that house retail and small restaurants, small office. it's going to increase the traffic. It's going to increase the use of this neighborhood, and I'm not sure if these concerns would be met with these residents that have called in today. So it's a commercial property. It's on the edge of residential. Somebody's going to come in and develop it, and there's going to be movement and cars and driveways and accidents. That's this corner. So I don't feel that allowing car sales is going to any more increase what it would be if I just put a strip mall in here with several different businesses. So thank you for your consideration. I appreciate everybody on this call.
Any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to commission. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we approve the request to allow to have the intended uses for this property, and knowing that the applicant has agreed to the 12 items that would be required for him to serve or have that purpose on this property.
Mr. Green, if I could, would you be able to list some findings for your?
Yeah, I think that there is no detrimental effect to the nearby property, since both north and south and actually west is all zoned limited commercial. I also feel like even though there might not be any car lots within a mile radius of this, I don't know that there are any retail sales, Dollar General stores, for example, within a mile radius of this location. So I don't see that there is any real hardship for the adjacent neighborhood.
Okay, you got a motion to approve by Mr. Green, second by Ms. Miles?
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay. Next item is 4.4, 2021-00054, and we just got additional staff comments on this one.
Bill Longacre, Senior Planner, Current Plans, Preliminary Planning Commission. The update on this particular case, which is a conditional use for a major utility on GI zone property, is that there is concern, the applicant is having trouble getting a response from the property owner in regards to the recommendation to plat that. So major utilities are not required to be platted, but as a conditional use, you can use that. And in discussing this with the applicant's agent, we thought this would signify a good legal separation from the rest of that property. However, because they're not having trouble getting in touch with the property owner, we just as soon drop that condition and go on with this conditional use. We're going to have a site plan that's going to have to be approved. We've got meets and bounds description. That should do it.
Questions of staff? Thank you, Bill.
Any other questions?
Guess not. Do we need to hear from the applicant or agent?
She is here.
So that may be advisable since you're already
Hey,
here.
applicant, agent, please.
Yeah, my name's Chris Monner. I'm with LG in Topeka, 818 South Kansas Avenue. We have an existing facility, a substation right to the east of where the proposed is. It's very ancient. It needs to be replaced along some of the equipment, so that's why we want to move west. It's on our property. And it's not so much that we haven't been able to contact them, it's just that it has to run through the culvert chain. And it takes it takes longer than we expect. But,
Mr. Meyer, this is Scott Wadle, a staff member, and your microphone is really not clear at all. So, but you do have a representative here who may be able to make your case for you.
Like a driver.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'll let Rebecca do the speaking then. Rebecca should do it.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. As Chris noted, Chris Meyer with Evergy is on the phone. My name is Rebecca Melius. I'm the agent for the applicant with PEC 303 South Topeka. Chris was stating, so this is an expansion of an existing substation. There's a small substation that's there supporting the area. In particular, there's a lot of fuel storage for Phillips 66 and One Oak through that area. It's all industrial usage. So this is just merely bringing it into conformance and expanding that substation to better support the area. So as Bill noted, Evergy is in negotiations with One Oak in acquiring their easement, and that has been rather burdensome. So adding the plating discussion to it was something we weren't able to get a clear answer for in time for this meeting. So if staff is acceptable to it, which Bill and I discussed, our recommendation or request would be that that would not be a condition of our approval, since that easement will be a recorded document, that there will be a clear meets and bounds of the area that is Evergy's to use. And so other than that, we're in agreement with staff comment, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
So you have permission to use this.
Yes.
It's just you can't get anything more from.
Correct. A timely response was the critical issue today in regard to plating. Evergy as a whole has no significant concern in plating the property, but since they're not acquiring the property, we would have to have that plat documentation would have to go through someone else, and even getting them to say, yeah, sure, go ahead and plat it has been a little cumbersome. So if we can avoid it, that would be more efficient to keep the project on track, but we'll, again, address it any way we can, so.
As long as he has permission.
Yes, there's an easement, there's an existing easement that we're working on, obviously modifying for this proposed expansion, and we won't be able to do any of that work until that's completed, so.
Any other questions of the agent or the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the chamber want to speak on this item? Seeing none, anybody virtual? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve, Commissioner Blick.
Yes?
Move to approve. Second.
And that's with the not having the screening or the plating, correct?
Yes, correct.
Motion by Mr. Blick, second by Mr. Green. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Next item,
Thank you.
2021-00062.
Kathy Morgan for the Planning Department. This request, we've had several of these during the last 3 or 4 Planning Commission meetings. This request is identified as a nightclub in the city. However, the applicant is requesting live entertainment indoors. They do operate a bar and restaurant. This is in the community unit plan, Lawrence's Addition Community Unit Plan that was approved by the Planning Commission several years ago. It is at the entrance to Delano, right at Seneca and Kellogg. Would you go to the next slide, please? The aerial shows, it's the building on the south that houses the restaurant bar, now Clutch House. It does have an outdoor patio on the north end of that building in this area. The CUP requirements would remain in effect except for the allowance of the entertainment indoors. There is no outdoor entertainment allowed in the CUP. The conditions that are mentioned in the staff report, the music and entertainment, those hours of operation are currently what the business has, so that it's not expanding the hours of operation. Staff finds that this is in compliance with the community investments plan. It's also located within the established central area and the Delano neighborhood plan that was updated in 2019. And that plan identifies this as a gateway into Delano, and therefore should be allowed to have multiple uses to attract people into the Delano area. So staff is recommending that the community unit plan be amended to allow a nightclub in the city, amend General Provision 3 to allow a nightclub in the city.
Any questions of Kathy? Mr. Hartman?
Do you know what the occupancy is of the existing building?
No, I don't have that information.
How much was the occupancy?
But they would not, with this addition, they would not be allowed to, whatever is required of restaurant and bar, this would not allow that to increase. So as long as...
The size won't change?
No, the size will not change.
And this is not adult entertainment, it's just entertainment. Is that correct?
Yeah, adult entertainment, it's, if I'm understanding what you're asking,
Adult
is not...
sexual entertainment?
No, that's not allowed.
Okay.
Sexually oriented businesses are not allowed within the city.
By the name, it's a little
Yeah,
questionable.
yes.
Okay. Fletch House.
Any other questions of Kathy?
Took me 2 years to figure out Twin Peaks.
Thank you, Kathy. Applicant or agent? Applicant or agent, please.
Hello,
Give us your name and address, please.
my name is Emmanuel Colori,
Your address, please.
524 South Seneca Street.
Okay, you got 10 minutes.
We are very appreciative of the city and approving or the recommending in the item 62. We are okay with the not having outdoor entertainment, which is primarily in the patio area. I understand that because it is not covered, or there are no sound barriers to the west especially. So we are okay with that. And just like stated here, those are the hours of operations for us. And we try to keep the entertainment within the bar.
Are you in agree with staff comments?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there any questions of the applicant? Mr. Warren?
Yeah, I guess the question I've got is, we're looking at a couple of letters here that say there's fairly significant noise problems in the area. It doesn't sound like you're doing a very good job of controlling the noise. Can you give me an idea of what you would do to control how noisy this gets outside of the confines of your building?
If it is coming from the parking or the cars late at night, that is something that we try to address that whenever it is an event. We will have a security in a way that they can contain that. But all the noise within the restaurant doesn't really affect the neighborhood. But it's the parking lot to the east probably is a concern to the neighbors. That's all I can say about that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Could you give us a occupancy, number of occupants in this facility?
I think it's 259.
Yeah, 259.
What was it?
259.
259?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Third question, Commissioner Blick.
Go ahead, Mr. Blake.
Yes, I have a question for the applicant. I've heard recently and for the last year that the community policing officers were having some problems around with cars being broken into at your facility and stuff. Have you been working with the community policing officers on that, on getting that fixed?
Yes, we have. We have seen the breaking in the beginning, but we haven't seen any reported cases recently.
And that was on the north end where that space is still vacant. Most of that was happening on, if you look at the drawing there, happened on the lot on the far north, which there's nothing in that far north 2,000 square feet. Great, thank you, I appreciate it.
Any other
And
questions?
also,
Go ahead.
parking lot is fully lighted, so we make sure that the parking lot has plenty of lights. Therefore, there's no chance for people to get ideas.
Any other questions of the applicant? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else in the chamber would like to speak on this item? Please come forward and give us your name and address.
My name's Jim Mackey. I live at 1018 West University, which is right next door to this establishment. I lived on that block. I rented a house for 5 years, and then I bought a house there. I've lived there, it'll be 25 years next year. So I've been here for 30 years. I'm probably one of maybe 2 people in the block that are single. And I realized living right there on Kellogg is right there. My house faces Kellogg. So for 25 years, I hear noise on Kellogg. Well, that doesn't bother me. You get used to that after a while. Every weekend, I go to clubs. I support live music big time in this town. I go during the week to Meddy's or Artichoke. They have live music. I go to clubs dancing. On the weekends to the Candle Club, Yah-Yahs, Borchets, I support. But this place next door, every hour there'll be somebody come in there or pull out with their stereo just blaring. Now I realize that that's not their problem, but they had, just yesterday I heard a stereo going. I look out my kitchen window and one of their employees, one of the cooks is out in his car, got the door open and the stereo's blaring. Now, a few months ago, they had a guy, you can hear him coming down Seneca, a half a block away. He pulls in. This is one of their employees. He pulls in. I've been in the backyard and I've talked to him a couple times. My neighbors have even talked to the night manager about this guy. When he leaves at night, which he gets there about 3, he leaves at night, and before he gets out of the parking lot, he sets off car alarms more than once. That's how loud this is. These people have no concept of volume in the neighborhood at all. They can't even control their employees' volume in the parking lot. So, and the fence, they've got an 8-foot fence right beside mine. I talked to this gentleman right here about 6 weeks or 2 months ago. The boards are all warped, they're falling off. I talked to him, he said, okay, I talked to him right at the fence. I showed him where they were all falling off. He said, okay, I'll get it taken care of. 3 weeks later, it was still like that, so I fixed the boards myself. So, that's all I got to say. If you have any
questions,
questions
Speaker?
for me.
As to the.
No. We'll wait till all the speakers speak.
Sorry.
Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Chad Davis. I live at 1003 West Mentor, abutting the property. As you see here, this is Mr. Mackey's property. This is my property that runs all the way over. Mr. Mackey has a different problem than I have. Down at this end of the parking lot, even after dozens of times of going and speaking to this gentleman to get him to do something about this, they do nothing about monitoring this. And you can see the black marks all over the parking lot that denote this. After hours beer drinking, underage beer drinking, the selling of drugs. I see all this from my house right here. Their fence is 10 feet from my bedroom windows. And they have the audacity to sponsor a car club. This is the loud need for speed cars, and allow them to be right there 10 feet from my window with their music thumping and their revving of their engines. And they think this is okay. This has been going on for 2 years. I have tried multiple times to get them to do something about it. They refuse. Their security is Signal 88. They are of no use. I have given them all the information they need to obtain a moonlighting police officer to provide security on their lot. If there is a police car parked over here during their heaviest times, and he is inside the building or roaming the lot, I can promise you nothing is going to transpire in that parking lot. He refuses. It's $40 an hour, 4-hour minimum, to have a uniformed police car driving security officer sitting here, but he chooses to not do it. He chooses rather to be a bad neighbor. As far as the lighting, they do not control the lighting. It comes on after it's dark. It's still on in the morning when the lights are on, and even though it is zoned properly and properly installed, it is in violation of the lighting nuisance ordinance that illuminates the side of my house all night long. And they refuse to do anything about this. Their fence is not 8 feet. They got a variance to not have an 8-foot fence. And the fence is manufactured out of a material that promotes noise amplification. It's not enough it's coming off of the side of their building and reverberating back into the entire neighborhood. I have been over to Osage and heard this. It's also reverberating off of the fence. So imagine, if you will, if you were in your backyard and a Dodge Demon was backed up to that fence and he's revving his engine, what that sounds like on the other side with 10 right there.
Sir, your time's up. Do you need more time?
Yes, just another minute, please.
Another minute? Go ahead.
I have tried countless times to talk to the manager. I have tried to talk to the owner to bring them in compliance with being a good neighbor. They may be in compliance zoning-wise and everything, but all they attract is a bad element. And if they're allowed to have live music and bands, it's going to bring in even more people and more of a bad element. And the cops have had to respond to this bar for multiple things on multiple occasions. I request this application be denied. Thank you.
Any questions, Speaker? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this item?
Good afternoon. My name is Linda Zwickel. My husband Dwayne and I live at 1012 West University.
which is adjacent to the properties we were just speaking about. Our house is right here, next to Mr. Mackey's. The biggest problem that we have had since Tight Ends and the Clutch House have opened, the open patio that was discussed, which is in between these two buildings here, they have had live DJs there on weekends. The hours, we've tried to call enough times that they shut down at least at 11 o'clock on weekdays. But weekends, it seems to be unknown how late they can be out there. And I'm wondering, the question I had is, if this is approved for live entertainment, will the DJs that are outside now be disallowed so that there is no loud music being conducted on that patio? As you can see where the location of this is, it funnels right behind Mr. Mackey's garage, or right in between these two and right into our bedroom. And there have been times when I've had to awake early, 4 o'clock in the morning to go to work. It's hard not to go to sleep early in the evening. So that's one of the problems that we've had. And the loud car radios are prevalent in a lot of communities around town, but when they shake the house so that you can't hear the TV, then it gets a little unreasonable. So we would not oppose indoor controlled entertainment as long as the security is ramped up for hours, 2 o'clock in the morning, if that's when they're going to let everybody out, so that that's controlled, so that our neighborhood stays safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else want to speak on this item? Anybody else? Before we bring it back to the applicant, oh yeah, but I got questions from staff. What's now there's not supposed to be any outside entertainment on the patio?
That is correct, sir.
And is the same owner on both buildings and haul the parking lot?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Okay, anybody virtual want to speak on this item? Anybody?
Yes.
Okay, give us your name and address.
Vincent Hancock with the DeLeo Neighborhood Association. More of a question to staff of if this has gone in front of the District Advisory Board at this point. That's my only question.
Okay, hang on one second.
Vincent, this will be heard at DAB 6 on Monday, December the 6th.
Thank you, Kathy.
Anybody else virtual want to speak on this item?
Question?
Oh, any questions?
Wait. I'm sorry. I said DAB 6. It's going to be heard at DAB 4. It's in the DAB 4 district. Thank you, Philip.
Anybody have any of the commissioners have questions?
Mr. Hancock, would you prefer that we delay any action until your DAB has heard this?
I have no preference. I just wanted to make sure that the neighbors knew that they had another opportunity to share.
Okay, any other questions, Speaker? Okay, bring it back to the applicant. You got 2 minutes for rebuttal.
I heard the comments. I appreciate the feedback and also understand the concerns. As the gentleman suggested, I could arrange the security, especially on a busy day or weekends. And also, I'll make sure that we implement, especially with the employees, about the noise control. And as to the other vehicles coming in, I do see some parked right in front of the building. It actually rattles my glass windows. And I have no idea about how to control that, but there are a couple of times I do went outside and talked to them. They were able to lower the volume. But these things do happen, but not on a busy night. But sometimes it is very difficult to know who is got those high volume speakers and whatnot. But having the security at night possibly could cut down that. And I like the suggestion gentleman made, costs $40 for 4 hours. I'm willing to do that. And as to the random drive-throughs and all that, I really don't have no control on that.
Any questions of the applicant?
Yeah, what about the light pollution one gentleman mentioned?
We did have some issues with the timing. They're all pre-programmed, timing out the lights. And for the gentleman who, that Mackie, he did talk to me about light shining in his house. We are thinking about putting a shade on the side of his house. That way it doesn't light his windows or something.
With a higher fence or something.
Yeah. At one time, we thought about possibly not even light that pole, but the cars parked, I cannot leave that dark. But I need to make sure that it is not lighting his windows.
Any other questions? I guess I got one. I'm curious, what do you think you could do about your employees and how they're corresponding with the neighbors? Is there any way to get that on a little better playing field? They're trying to be good to you, but I don't like it when you can't even control your employees.
No, it actually makes sense because I wasn't aware that one of my employees are, playing loud music. And although it looks like the gentleman had talked to the employee, but honestly, I didn't know about that. But I'll make sure we interview every employee and then make sure that we will take care of that issue.
Secondly, would you not oppose having security in the parking anytime there's live entertainment in this going on?
Yes, we will have security both inside and outside as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions there? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to commission. What's the pleasure of the board?
I got a comment.
Okay, Mr. Hartman.
We put a lot of money and time into this Delano plan. I think I would like to defer this for a couple of weeks so we can get their input at their DAB meeting before we go ahead with this. And considering the neighbors and they're having such a hard time with the owner at this time, I'd hate to introduce another use in here that's going to make things worse. So I would, for one thing, like to hear from the DAB board there in Delano.
That's a motion already.
I had two people speaking. Cindy, what did you say?
I'd make a second.
If that's a motion.
Was that a motion, Mr. Hartman?
Yeah, I'll make that a motion.
Now you got a second.
And Miles second.
Any other discussion? Mr. Warren?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with the motion to defer. One of the things that I would like to see when we look at this again after the DABs have to take a look at it, the applicant has made some statements of things that they're willing to do. I would like to see those in writing as a condition of the approval, that it's not just their word that they're going to do it, but that it becomes a condition of this change.
So I've been involved in restaurant and bar business for a lot of years. And it is very difficult to control some of the problems that they're having with regard to activities in parking lots and that kind of thing, but it shouldn't have to come before a board like this before there's any sort of action taken. I mean, we've had to hire bouncers before to keep noise down and people in buildings and that kind of thing. So it shouldn't have to come to us in a forum like this. It should have already been taken care of. These people should have already been satisfied. And so if there is an association and the DAB needs to meet, then I think they ought to go ahead and meet. But beyond that, I think it ought to be deferred longer than that in order for people that own this building and this establishment to prove that they can actually take care of their business. That'd be my opinion.
Ms. Foster?
I am in agreement with deferring, but I would like some clarification on whether this board is the proper entity to be concerning ourselves with noise abatement. I don't think that's our job. I'm not sure, but I don't think it is. We're being asked about nightclub in the city use inside the building to have live entertainment, and that's all we're being asked. I totally sympathize with the neighbors, but I just am not sure that we're the entity that's supposed to be dealing with their problems.
Any other discussion?
I agree with Ms. Foster, but I'd like a little clarification on that conversation. Would you like to, anybody like to weigh in on that from a staff standpoint?
Commissioners, good afternoon. J.R. Cox, Metropolitan Planning for the record. If I'm understanding what I'm being asked, it's about noise and enforcement of the noise ordinance, and that generally is going to be a police matter. They would be the ones on scene during the times when those violations might occur. So they would be the ones to handle that. Did that
That answers it. It seems to me they might want to invite their neighborhood officer to the DAB meeting and talk to the person who actually can do something about the problems.
You're almost asking us to ignore what's being said by just saying that. Are you not? I mean, it's not our responsibility, so we just throw it.
No, sir. I
Is that
was
what you're
trying to explain who would be the responsible party. I think you can factor in many issues as you take a decision. It's about the best way I can answer it, I think.
Ms. Foster, you're exactly right in what you're saying, but they're requesting additional things to do in the facility. That gives us an opportunity to do some different things. And it's a trade-off. So we got to get where neighbors and businesses get along well. And if we accomplish that, I feel like we did a good job. So that's why I'm suggesting that.
My concern would be adding another privilege to an organization that hasn't been able to uphold their current obligation to the neighborhood. So that opportunity for DAB to have more voice and for the owner to demonstrate the ability to work within the guidelines required is important. We also know there's not enough officers to police the city to the level necessary.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Blake had
I have a discussion, Josh. I have a question for staff.
Go ahead, Mr. Blake.
Question is there a possibility or not to have this as a temporary approval or denial, or say a temporary approval for, say, 1 year or 2 years, and then to revisit it?
Well, that's the city attorney, I think.
You look back at him.
Well,
He's moseying up.
From this staff's perspective, I would have to say that might be a possibility, but generally conditional uses run with the land. There are certain conditional uses, of course, that have time limits. Some extraction of raw materials comes immediately to mind. It normally has a set time. It's fairly long in most cases. Mr. Van Zant, would you like to opine?
Jeff Van Zandt, Assistant City Attorney. I just love these pop quizzes. I think you can impose a limited time for for a conditional use for this kind of facility. There are some things that have been brought up as far as, this implies that this music is only indoors, but there's currently had been evidence stated that there's been music playing on a patio. So it could require some structural changes to the facility in order just to keep the music indoor itself. So I don't think there's a problem if you want to impose a time limit on this where it's come back and revisited. We have typically only done these kind of things when it is for mineral extraction, dirt, gravel, things of that nature as well. But I do not know of a scenario where it would be prohibited, and it just wouldn't be a factor in the documentation that the staff would do that would cause this kind of a condition to run with the land. There would be we'd have to work on the documentations to ensure that this is more of a temporary license, if you will, to do this for a period of time, and then come back and provided the conditions that associated with those in the plan, which can include a lot of things we've already talked about. If those have been proved to have been met, may not make everybody still happy. There could be noise. It's a bar, right? So it's not going to be, always quiet. There's going to be issues, but it's a possibility.
Scott, you want to add something?
Yes, sir. I would just point out that if a deferral is the will of the commission, that could provide additional time and opportunity for staff to research such an issue and bring it back to you all.
Warren? I've got a question. Is the conditions on an amendment to a community unit plan the same as a conditional use, or are they similar? I mean, we've talked about conditional use conditions, and this is an amendment to a community unit plan.
J.R. Cox, Metropolitan Planning, again, sorry. I think Jeff was saying 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. In a case where you have something that's conditional use, car sales, for instance, in LC, conditional use, that were in a CUP, it'd be an amendment to the CUP. So it depends on its underlying existing zoning as to what action's taken, but essentially it serves the same purpose.
But we can put conditions on this, is that if we're going to approve this amendment, these are the conditions that we put on it to satisfy that need. That was the bottom line, is what I get to, is that we can put conditions on this amendment.
Correct, and that's what I was trying to indicate earlier, is that there's many factors that you can look at, and you can put conditions that I think, to speak lawyerly, it'd have to be reasonable and not capricious. It'd have to address whatever the issues are, but correct. Another test.
Yes, no, that's absolutely correct. JR has been reading my books. It is reasonable and uncapricious, but like I said, a lot of the factors that we've been talking about, you guys constantly talk about lighting, but if there's a problem, you could put a condition that those lighting, the timer on these lightings be adjusted, because it would be the equivalent of you saying they can't be more than 15 feet. Well, if they were installed at 17 feet, you'd have the real ability to somebody to look at that. So a lot of the things that have been talked about today are conditions that you normally do impose, and so I have no trouble with what those are at all.
If we do that, if they do not comply with those issues, then the amendment goes away. I mean, that's the conditional use. You don't do what we do, the conditional use goes away.
That's it.
Normally, there'd be enforcement action first, and then I suppose if we ran into somebody that said, I really don't care what you think, I know what they meant, or I know what I want, ultimately, yes, in the case of a conditional use, it can be nullified.
Okay. Sorry, one last thing, just to keep in mind, what we're talking about here is the conditional use to allow music indoors, not to stop the bar, not to do anything else, right? So it's just that limitation on what would be stopped after a year.
No, thank you.
I think the unique situation here is the business is operating and there's a history that they already have established, as opposed to something that's brand spanking new and
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, there's a motion and a second before the floor.
Do what?
There's a motion and a second on the floor at present to defer.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Do we want a time limit on it? I mean, when?
Yeah, let's take a roll call on it, please.
Sir, you, just to be clear, you'd like to take a roll call on the motion to defer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Bill Johnson?
Yes.
Fox?
Yes.
McKay?
Yes.
Gross?
Yes.
Green?
Aye.
Jewel?
Yes.
Blick?
Yeah.
Nix?
Yes.
Foster?
Yes.
Warren?
Yes.
Joe Johnson is absent. Miles?
Yes.
Hartman?
Yes.
Lawrence?
Yes.
13-0.
Thank you. And this will go in front of the DAB. What's the date?
Scheduled Monday
6th of
the 6th.
December. And then we'll hear it back here 2 weeks.
December 16th.
All right, thank you. Next item's 4.6, 2021 00048, 2439 West 3rd Street. Single family SF5 to TF3.
Yes, good afternoon again. Philip Zievenbergen for the record. The applicant is requesting a zone change to TF3, two-family residential for property address 2439 West 3rd Street. As you can see on the map, it's within a block east of North Meridian, north of 2nd Street. The site is located in the Delano Neighborhood Overlay District, which requires all buildings to meet a certain design criteria in order to preserve, enhance, and promote the character of the Delano neighborhood. The applicant did not submit plans for a site plan or elevations for the proposed duplex at this time, nor were they required to. But what that means is prior to issuing any building permits, a site plan and elevation review will be done by the Delano Neighborhood Design Committee. And they will have to approve those plans of what the architecture of the building will look like before any building permits are issued. In general, those design guidelines are so that the building fits with the character of the existing homes of the historic Delano neighborhood. Properties to the northeast, south, and west that directly abut the property or are adjacent across the street are single-family residential, developed with single-family residences. However, on the zoning map, as you can see, anything that is in yellow is TF3 zoning. So there's three TF3 zones property on the same block as this property, in addition to a smattering of TF3 zoning throughout the neighborhood. Meridian is the dividing line between the Delano neighborhood and the neighborhood to the west. So all of the TF3 zoning to the west is outside of the Delano neighborhood design guidelines. Anything to the east of Meridian is within the Delano neighborhood, but you can still see there's a smattering of TF3 zoning, so it's definitely not a unique type of zone change request in the immediate area. The property was platted in 1887, and the Delano overlay was implemented in 2003. The plan or the zone changes in conformance with the community investments plan, which identifies the area as appropriate for residential uses. This does include a variety of housing types such as duplexes. It is also in conformance with the goals of the Wichita Places for People plan. It aligns with strategy number 5 of the plan, which is to provide a diversity of housing options to attract new residents and allow existing residents to remain in the established central area. It also aligns with strategy number 6, which is to encourage infill and redevelopment that is contextual to the environment in which it is occurring. The property is located within an area of opportunity, which is defined as areas that generally exhibit economic challenges and disconnected development pattern and a lack of walkable places and facilities. It promotes having strategic reinvestment both from public and private sources for assisting in redefining and reinvigorating the area. This would be an opportunity for private investment within the area. The property right now is currently undeveloped. The original house has been razed, so there is not an existing residence on the property. And then finally, with the nodal development pattern, the plan identifies a neighborhood hub at Meridian and Douglas, This is within the transition zone, and the transition zone is the area where you're looking to decrease the intensity of uses before you get to the more low intensity uses. So you look at higher density housing, lower intensity commercial mixed type of area within a transition zone. Staff is recommending approval. We don't have conditions on this or protective overlay just because it is within the Delano neighborhood overlay, and that has its own conditions that have to be met in order to, so there's no need for protective overlay regarding architectural controls or things of that nature, because that will be taken care of during the Delano Design Review Committee of the elevations and architecture before the building can actually be built. The findings are in our staff report. It fits within the neighborhood and the neighborhood context. It's in conformance with the plans. I can take you through the site pictures real quick. If you walk through, you can see there is the existing foundation pad, but no house. Next picture. This is a land use plan showing it's within residential. Next picture. This is of the site itself, some beautiful mature trees on a nice fall day. You can see it's a pretty standard old lot to where it's fairly long and narrow, so there should be a unique plan when it comes to putting a duplex on there, but again, the Delano Design Committee will have to approve that. Basically, one of the things that it definitely wards off against is the prominence of a extended garage out front and houses behind. Doesn't mean there can't be the garages, but it has to be incorporated differently. So they will potentially have challenges on getting a duplex on here, but the Delano Review Committee will be the final say. TF3 zoning does allow single-family residential development as well. So if a duplex is not cannot be feasible because of a design issue, you can also revert back to a single-family home if that warrants it. Next picture. This is the houses to the southeast. Next picture. This is looking to the northeast down 3rd Street with some of the houses across the street. Next picture. This is looking to the southwest of the properties. Next picture. And this is looking to the northwest at the houses across the street. And I can stand for any questions. I should note, as becoming commonplace, this has not gone before the DAB. It goes on Monday. And then I also have not heard any phone calls or had any conversations outside of the meeting today regarding public comment, yay or nay on this case.
Any questions?
Is the alley operable? Looks to me like people have been driving that alley. So that
if it is, they have the right to use. Yeah, it looks like there are wheel tracks in the alley. It's probably just gravel. If it is operable to use they have alley access in order to put garages or things like that. That is definitely public access for them to use.
Any other questions? Philip? Thank you, Philip. Applicant or agent? Applicant or agent?
Oh, hi, can you hear me?
Give us your address, please.
It is 2439 West 3rd in Wichita. My husband, Tricia Peterson, my husband and I own Alchemy Investments, who we are requesting to rezone. We're small scale private investors. We own a couple other properties in the Wichita area. And we both grew up in the area, in Wichita, and I went to school at Newman University, so I'm familiar with the Delano area. We purchased the vacant lot a couple years ago with the intention of building an investment property on there, and we're requesting to have it rezoned ahead of design so that, as Philip just mentioned, we may have some limitations because we want to put the duplex on there. But we'd like the opportunity to maximize the number of units that we could put on the space to accommodate the growth in the area, as Philip also mentioned. And yet we're very aware of the Delano neighborhood requirements. Aesthetics are important to us as they are to the Delano neighborhood. So again, that's why we're making this request ahead of diving into the design of a new property.
Any questions of the applicant? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else here in the chamber like to speak on this item? Anybody in the chamber like to speak on this item? Anybody virtual want to speak on this item?
Yes.
Give us your name and address.
My name is Vincent Hancock. I am the Vice President of the Delano Neighborhood Association. On November 16th, I received an email from one of the neighbors, Tammy Withers. I'm not hearing her today. I'm going to read her comments on her behalf. She said that she lives at 2450 West 3rd Street North. Got a letter stating that there is an emergency rezoning meeting happening on their block, changing from SF3 to TF3. She's on up and down the block, and everyone she's spoken to that owns their homes was not in favor of this. They already have issues with the rental properties that exist and don't feel like adding a duplex will help the situation. And they were asking for help on how to voice their opinions together instead of individually, and they were thinking that 8 people would have a better voice being heard that way. As a neighborhood association, we've not had a chance to speak with the neighbors on that. I primarily gave them information on how to speak at today's meeting and also how to speak at the DAB. So with that, I thought it was only fair to share the neighbors' comments with your board today.
Any questions, Speaker? Anybody else virtual want to speak on this item? Anybody else virtual? Bring it back to the applicant. I don't know if you have any rebuttal to what comments were made.
I mean, unfortunately, I can't control how those people feel, but when we put tenants in our units, we try to be very cognizant of the type of people, and we screen them as best that we can. So while I'm sure I can't assure anyone that of the tenants that will be put in there, I can't offer a lot there. I understand their concerns, but there are, as the map indicates, plenty of other renters in the area. So I'd like the opportunity to develop a property and be in the Delano.
Thank you. Questions of that? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to commission. What's the pleasure of the board? Mr. Warren.
We go down this road, seems like an awful lot. The problem is not whether it's a duplex or single family. The problem is how it's managed, how it's maintained, how it's taken care of. And so unless we're going to outlaw rental properties in Delano, then I see no reason why this properly done would not be an asset to the community. So I'm going to make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Got a motion approved by Mr. Warren, second by Mr. Green. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Next item is 4.9, zoning 2021-00051, SF5 to MF18. Philip, I guess we get to see you again.
Yep, I'm the end of the show. So right, my name starts with Z. I'm used to being last. Little humor for today. Zone 2151, the applicant is requesting a zone change from SF5 to MF18. They propose a protective overlay, which is discussed in your staff report as well. The applicant would like the opportunity to potentially construct up to a triplex on here. That'd be 3 units. Given the density cap of MF18, which is 17.4 dwelling units per acre, 3 would be the maximum number of units. Given the size of this portion of a lot, it was split from the rest of Lot 5. It is the west 74.5 feet of Lot 5. So even without a protective overlay restricting it to triplexes, unless you had a much larger piece of land, you would only be able to support 3 units, up to 3 units, given the zoning they're requesting. The MF18 zoning district has minimum lot area requirements. This lot exceeds those. Regarding the development, there's no issue there. There is a platted 30-foot building setback along the west side of the property. In addition, the zoning code sets compatibility setbacks, which would be a 20-foot setback from the property lines that abut the more restrictive zoning on the east and the north. These setbacks considerably restrict the building area of the site, given its 74.5-foot depth. The platted setback may be vacated, and the applicant can request to have the compatibility setbacks waived in order to increase the buildable area. The vacation would be a separate public hearing. However, the city council can waive the compatibility setbacks with a recommendation from the planning commission today. There are also off-street parking standards for multifamily uses. It is 1.5 or 1.25 parking stalls per dwelling unit for a 1-bedroom, or a 2-bedroom or larger is 1.75. Zoning cases don't require site plans, but it was just something they can't develop the site if they're not able to park the site as well. So it's something the applicant has to keep in mind, as well as they would have to provide the off-street parking requirement. Off-street parking cannot occupy any part of the front or the street side setback. So that would be along Hoover or along Elm. They would not be able to park any vehicles in those setbacks. So they would have to have them on the north side or the east side. It also has to comply with the screening standards, which is a minimum of a 6-foot screening fence on the north and the east side. The landscape ordinance requires 1 tree per 40 feet on the same property lines, and it would also need a landscape street yard along Hoover and Elm because it is across the street from residential zoning. In the established central area, in the past cases, staff has recommended design criteria for residential developments greater than a single family. Those are listed in there. We're not making this a requirement. We recently had a case where staff is recommending it be a recommendation that they follow these. Part of that is, if you go to the aerial image, Paul, the 2-family zoning that you see right across the street, in recent history within the last 10 to 15 years, there has been some redevelopment along Hoover, both with duplexes and single-family homes, to where the design of those is what we're generally seeing as generally common design of what we're seeing with houses these days, the prominent garages out front, houses tucked behind. We would still like to recommend that they have some of the architectural features, but our recommendation does not make that a requirement for them. Properties to the north, east, and south are single-family residential. We talked about the duplexes across the street to the west. The property was platted in 1949, and it was split in 2019 to create the subject parcel. It has access off of North Hoover and Elm. It is in conformance with the community investments plan, which identifies the areas appropriate for residential development, which includes a variety of housing types, such as duplexes and multifamily. It is also in conformance with the goals of the Wichita Places for People plan, much like the last case, aligning with strategy number 5, providing a diversity of housing options, and number 6, encouraging infill development that is contextual to the environment. The subject property is in an area of opportunity, which again, like the last case, shows a disconnected development pattern, lack of walkable spaces, the need for strategic reinvestment from public and private sources. This would be private investment into the area. Staff is recommending approval subject to protective overlay 381. Staff and the applicant worked back and forth before the writing of the staff report to really nail down the language of the protective overlay, so we don't have any additions or changes to the language of the protective overlay. It is restricting the height to 35 feet. I did not mention that before, but multifamily would allow it potentially be taller. But TF3 zoning or SF5 zoning allows 35-foot buildings, so we are restricting the height to 35 feet. The findings for our recommendation, there's two-family zoning on the west side. If you go further north on Hoover, there's additional two-family zoning. There's also MF18 near 9th Street at the top. So there's been some significant redevelopment along Hoover in the last 10 to 15 years, supporting higher density housing in the area. The removal of the restrictions shouldn't have any detrimental effects on the nearby properties with the protections of the protective overlay limiting the height. There's also the compatibility setbacks on the platted setback itself that restrict the buildable area and require other actions need to be taken in order to put larger structures on there. The protective overlay, still allows duplexes or single-family homes, so it may not necessarily be a triplex going in as they go through the feasibility of whether or not what can be supported on the site. We talked about the conformance to the comprehensive plan. I have had some phone calls about this with the concern of multifamily development being across the street from single-family. We can go through the pictures and then I'll stand for questions. If you want to move forward, go up forward one more. This is the site. As you can see, it is vacant here right on the corner. This garage here belongs to the property to the east. You can see the single-family home to the north of the property. Next picture. These are the duplexes to the northwest that are zone TF3. Next picture. This is the property south of it, but I'm looking east at the front of the property, but it's a single-family home. I'm on Hoover looking east. Elm is on the left-hand side of the screen. Next picture. This is looking to the southwest at the single-family home across the street to the southwest. Next picture. That's it. I can stand for any questions.
Questions, Philip?
I have one. Did I understand you to say correctly that aside from the language in the protective overlay, you want us to recommend, or it would be better if we recommended that the setback standards are waived?
It's an option. I wasn't recommending, there's not a recommendation that these setbacks are waived. That could be something the applicant requests from you that you would make part of your motion, that the compatibility setbacks. It would take a recommendation from you in order for city council to waive them when they consider this for final approval if you move to approve it. Staff is not recommending the waiver of them. That could be something the applicant could request from you guys.
Right,
it is not
later
part of,
or now?
it would have to be during this public hearing. Okay. It would have to be part of your motion. It is not part of staff's recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Staff? Seeing none, okay. Applicant or agent?
Kirk Miller, K.E. Miller Engineering, 117 East Louis. I'm the agent for the applicant. We requested multifamily because he wanted to see if he could fit a triplex on there. So we would also like to request a waiver of the compatibility setbacks. So we'd have room to actually do something that, whether it be a triplex or a duplex, where we'd have some room to actually not really kind of jam stuff in there as much as we need to. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions, agent? Seeing none.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else here would like to speak on this item? Please come forward and give us your name, address.
A good day or evening. My name is John Eckler. I live at 726 North Hoover, which is just south of this. And I'm against the zone change. There's already too much traffic on the residential road now. It is unsafe to cross, walk down, or drive, or park on. I've had multiple vehicles hit my fence, taken out 3 times, and since they put these rentals started in them. And I'm sure this will create more traffic and trash and noise. And on this side of Hoover, these are all half-acre lots. It is inconsistent with the current land use, and it will cost all residents, homeowners around the property more in taxes and road improvements and public services. They have 3 times the density of people in half the land, and Mr. Armstrong is not paying his fair share. And it's wrong to zone to MF18 as to the TF3 is what the duplexes are, so I mean, why he's wanting to do that other than to exploit the rest of the neighborhood so they can continue on. And I believe Mr. Armstrong and his company doesn't care about the neighborhood. They only want to make more money. He hasn't taken care of the lot, just lets the weeds and the stickers grow. They also have 2 big trees, dead trees on that lot that are losing big branches. And there's a young family with a small child whose drive is right next to these trees, and they are fortunate they haven't been severely hurt. Hoover Road is already oversaturated with rentals now, and it cannot handle the traffic or the rainwater runoff. There are no storm drains, and Hoover is a river when it rains now. There are other more suitable areas for these types of rentals. And it already is too small a lot, but they need special exemptions. And they've had a traffic study on this road, and I've requested to stop commercial traffic because they've turned Hoover basically into a bypass, and this will only exacerbate that. Thank you.
Any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you. Anybody else want to speak on this item?
My name is James McElroy. I live at 732 North Hoover, which is just north of the property in question. My wife and I moved out to that neighborhood many years ago to raise our family of 4 boys. We bought the half acre because it was all plotted for half acre single family, which was an attraction to us with the children. We have been living in this house for 63 years. Our boys have been educated right there in the neighborhood, in North High and so on and so forth. And we've come to the point in our life where this is where we wanted to be and stay. My wife is 80 years old. I'm 89 years old. We don't feel like we want to be uprooted because of this situation. So we are asking for you people to take this in mind. You know, we put in 64 years. We've done that. When we went out there, we didn't have a paved street. We didn't have a sewer. We didn't have city water. And we lived through all these different things. And we just feel like this is where we want to remain the rest of our days. Thank you.
Any questions, Speaker? You want to speak? Name and address, please.
Commissioners, my name is Kelly McElroy. I live at 30811 West Seidel Drive in Garden Plain. I have the privilege of being Mr. McElroy's daughter-in-law, one of 4, married to son number 3, and I have heard many fond reminiscences about the boys growing up in this house in the neighborhood and how that neighborhood has grown and changed. As they mentioned, when they moved out there, Hoover was not even a paved road, and the 2 older brothers of my husband talk very fondly about growing produce in their backyard garden and taking it to the construction workers that were building the 235 bypass. So we have extensive history in this community. Philip, may I impose on someone on staff? Could you go back to the aerial for reference, please, if I may? Thank you. My day job, I do planning and zoning and economic development. I manage the city of Newton. So, excuse me if I get a little technical a bit. So, is this the correct one? Sorry.
This is in the right aerial.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry. So while he's pulling that up, just for reference, yes, thank you very much. Yeah, so my father-in-law's house, Mr. McElroy's house, is this property right here. This property right here that was split is also very special to the family because it's actually where my husband's grandparents lived for many, many years. So they had that benefit of growing up. After they passed, that property kind of changed hands several times. It was never well taken care of and eventually ultimately got abandoned and went to a tax auction. And that's when it was purchased and then the lot was split later on, is my understanding. Elm Street, as you can see in this overhead, is not paved. So we had some concerns as the neighboring properties. I know in Newton, I know the code is different here. I don't know what the code is, I don't presume to. But in Newton, when new development comes in, it's the responsibility of the developer to put those improvements in, not necessarily for the whole benefit district. Oftentimes it is absorbed by that particular property owner. So I have a question of that as a contingency. We would also be concerned about the multifamily zoning versus a duplex zoning. Mr. Armstrong, the property owner, was very gracious and took multiple phone calls from me. In fact, my father-in-law even offered to buy this parcel of property, and he declined because he said he was already in the construction loan phase with the bank for the duplex that he wishes to build. So we would feel that if a rezoning is going to be necessary for the development of this property, we know there's a lot of other development in that area that is mostly duplexes. Two-family might be the more appropriate zoning, and I know you are allowed by your code to apply a lesser zoning during this public hearing. You can't go greater, but you may go lesser, and so we would request your consideration of that, perhaps going to two-family versus the multifamily. We would also object to those setbacks being waived. It doesn't show necessarily here, but that building setback line that Philip mentioned in his staff report is approximately right here at the front of my in-laws porch if you went straight north and south. So they're only going to be able to build in this area of that property. And if they're going to have a 20-foot setback here and a 20-foot setback here, plus the parking can only be in this area, technically, when I look at that, I'm a developer, I do infill development, you can get the triplex on there. It is not going to be a pleasant site plan for most anyone. When we were on the way here, actually, I was backing out of my father-in-law's driveway. It's a single drive. There was a car parked on the street here, one parked on the street here, cars parked on all sides of the road here, and we almost got rear-ended as I was trying to back out because you can't see. There's not great line of sight there. There's a lot of commercial traffic on this road that this neighborhood was never designed to bear, but because of 235 and the central intersection, they're looking for ways to get around that backlog. And if you've ever driven through there, yes, sir.
Your time's up. Do you need more time?
No, sir. Thank you very much. I'd be happy to answer questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions of the speaker? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Anybody virtual want to speak on this item? Anyone virtual want to speak on this item? Seeing none, 2 minutes rebuttal.
We kind of anticipated the neighbors not wanting a triplex. I talked to the developer about it, and he said if we can downzone it to TF3, which apparently we can do, is that like a legal question? If we can, instead of passing the MF18, pass a TF3 here today, that he would be fine with that. And then if we did that on the PO, we'd want to strike the item about landscaping, because that wouldn't be required in TF3, but it would be in the multifamily.
Got the attorney coming.
I was hoping that would happen.
Get paid for the work today.
Jeff Van Zandt, Assistant City Attorney, your question was, can you amend your application and in fact go from a 18 to a TF3?
Right.
Yeah, I think the code says, if I'm not mistaken, Jerry, you guys got it, that you can reduce, in essence, the size, or I think the intensity request, because if you were trying to go the other way, then the notices that went out would be misleading. But if you're going to be doing less than what was originally intended, I think we're okay with that. But I unfortunately don't have the code in front of me, and JR can double check that for me.
Scott, you got any more input? Any questions?
Yeah, while they're looking that up, are the compatibility setbacks, what would you be looking at from that standpoint?
We would want just the standard setback for the zoning.
Okay.
And we'd like the standard landscape requirement for the zoning.
Okay.
So if I may, if you move to approve TF3 zoning, that changes several things. There's no longer compatibility setbacks in play because it's TF3. They only come into play when it becomes multifamily. In addition, the landscaping and the screening no longer are required either. And so all of that would become non-existent because now the TF3 zoning is compatible to the SF5 zoning. So you're not required to have screening, you're not required to have the landscaping. The parking requirement would reduce to just one space per dwelling unit. And so screening, landscaping, parking, and compatibility setbacks change because you're now on TF3 zoning and not multifamily zoning.
And what you said originally was if it was the higher quantity, they still would be limited by the square footage of the lot per dwelling unit.
If it's MF18, the density permitted in MF18 would only allow 3 dwellings to begin with. Just because it's 70.4, given the size of the lot, you do the math, you can only have 3 anyway. MF18 would allow duplexes, it would also allow single family. Other restricting factors on the site are the setbacks. The platted setback along Hoover has to be done via a public hearing in a vacation case. The compatibility setbacks along the north property line and the east property line, if you move for an MF18 zoning, you would have the ability to recommend them be waived to allow more buildable area. If it's TF3 zoning, the platted setback still applies because it's platted along Hoover, but the compatibility setbacks are no longer required because it's TF3 zoning against SF5 zoning, and our code does not require compatibility setbacks when those two are next to each other.
Do we know the platted setbacks?
I'm sorry?
Do you know what the platted setbacks are?
It's 30 feet along Hoover. So this property line here along Hoover, there's a 30-foot platted setback.
30 foot?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Commissioners. I just want to verify, we did verify with the code that you are authorized to accept the TF3 to go with a lesser intensity.
Ready to make a motion unless there's more people who want to talk.
I'm sorry?
Is there any more comments? Otherwise, I'm ready to make a motion.
Any more questions of the applicant? If not, we'll bring it back to commission.
I'd like to move that we approve rezoning for this parcel to TF3 and strike the protective overlay language of number 8 on landscaping.
And number 1 would be cleaned up to take triplexes out of there because TF3 can't support triplexes anyway, but that's just cleaning up the protective overlay language to support TF3 zoning.
That too.
I'll second.
On a motion to approve TF3. And did you have a question or you second it?
Second.
Okay. What I thought. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Next item, zoning case 2021-00052.
We are going to travel just up the street to 9th and Hoover. For zone 2152, the applicant is requesting a zone change from SF5 to MF18 for multifamily development. They also included a protective overlay at this location. The property is addressed 915 North Hoover. If you want to go to the concept plan that they provided, that will be very helpful. Ooh, maybe it wasn't included. In your staff report, there's a concept plan. I apologize, it was not a part of the, but it's page 10 of your staff report. They're proposing to develop 4 duplexes. If you go to the aerial, please. 4 duplexes along the north property line, so they'd be facing north towards the existing duplexes north of the property. They would have to plat the property in order to get building permits. It is the intention to keep the existing single-family home with a detached garage. To support the number of dwelling units on this property, they would need MF18 zoning. They could have done this via a zone change to TF3 with a conditional use for multifamily, but it just gets a little bit more complicated with that MF18 with a restriction, with a protective overlay is a little cleaner way to do that. They do not intend to subdivide the lot. It would all just be one contiguous lot where you then have, though they're proposing duplexes, you do have a multifamily use on the property. As you can see on that concept plan, they're anticipating, or they would like to use the existing driveway here. Let me back up a second.
Okay.
This property owner on the north owns, it's under common ownership. They own the subject property and they own all of the duplex properties to the north. So this drive is under common ownership with this. They would like to utilize that existing driveway in order to access their proposed parking area. One of the items of the protective overlay would to have an access easement recorded with the Register of Deeds to protect that access if this is approved, should the properties change hand and no longer be under common ownership. Another note about that is on December 16th, in 2 weeks, the Board of Zoning Appeals will be considering a variance request to waive some screening and landscaping requirements on that north property line in order to utilize the drive as well, because we're going into the same situation with the property to the south that we just considered. When you have multifamily zoning next to TF3 zoning, they would be required to have a 6-foot screening fence and the landscaping requirement as well. They would like to be able to efficiently use that driveway for future development on the property to the south, since it is under common ownership. The proposed density of this is 10.7 dwelling units per acre, which is well under the 17.4 that is permitted in MF18. The lot size requirements for the number of dwellings they're looking at doing also does not exceed, so there's enough square footage on the lot to develop it per the zoning code. The protective overlay would limit it to duplexes and single family, so you're not looking at triplexes or apartments or anything like that. They just wanted to be able to accommodate multiple buildings and only have it on one lot, hence the multifamily zoning. You see here, we talked about this screening and landscaping. It would be required on the north property line and the south property line. The south property line already has a 6-foot screening fence. So the variance that's going to be discussed in 2 weeks kind of differentiates between what should and should not be waived. We'll discuss that in 2 weeks. Similar to the one before, not a requirement from staff, but staff is recommending a recommendation to have architectural aesthetics be incorporated into the design of the duplexes. Property to the north, as I mentioned, is TF3 and is developed with duplexes. To the east, across Hoover, is single-family residential, as well as to the south. The south has been recently redeveloped back in 2006. It was a larger single-family lot that they split into 4 single-family lots and built 4 single-family homes on there instead. The application is conformance with the comprehensive plan, very similar to the case before regarding being in this area that is appropriate for residential uses. It's in conformance to the Wichita Places for People plan, just like the property down the street being in alignment with strategy number 5 and strategy number 6. It is also in the area of opportunity, and this would be private investment with infill. Staff is recommending approval with protective overlay 382. It would limit the development to duplexes. It would restrict the height to 35 feet. There would be the requirement for the landscape plan. And again, you will be considering a variance in 2 weeks that might amend some of those landscape requirements. And the shared access drive or the access easement will need to be recorded on the property to the north in order to protect that access. Findings for our recommendation is, if you go back to the zoning map, I don't know if we see it on there. This green right here, right at the corner of Hoover and 9th is MF18 zoning. You have TF3 zoning here. We talked about, these were those duplexes from the one just down the street. So again, the west side of Hoover, in the area is seeing some redevelopment, both with single-family and multifamily or higher density residential development. Even the property to the south, they took the half-acre lot or the almost acre lot and made it higher density. Instead of having one single-family home, they put 4 single-family homes and replatted it and subdivided it. So you had higher density, even though it wasn't duplexes, it's still higher density than what it was before. The protections of the protective overlay should mitigate negative impacts. We talked about the conformance to the comprehensive plan. I also heard some comments about this case as well with concerns of multifamily. In addition, I did hear from the property owner of all of these properties to the south, where apparently in 2006 there was something through the approval process, I think at the city council level, that restricted him from getting TF3 zoning 15 years ago. Not really germane to this, where he's not in opposition to this, he just was thinking it's a little unfair that 15 years ago he wasn't able to get higher density zoning. I think it was based off of a protest petitions that were filed and that the city council was the one to deny it. The planning commission and staff recommendation of that TF3 case was approval. It was just denied at the city council level instead. So that's the public comment that I've heard. It'll go to DAB next week on Monday. And I can take you the site pictures. This is looking southwest of the site. That's the existing single-family home and the detached garage. Next picture. This is that access drive. The majority of the duplexes would be facing the side of this duplex here. You can see there's actually a screening fence on their property, screening this duplex from the drive, which serves the duplex behind it. Next picture. These are the row of duplexes north of the site that are all under common ownership with the subject parcel. Next picture. This is looking to the southeast at the single-family homes. Next picture. And this is looking directly west at the single-family home across the street. And I can stand for any questions.
Any questions, staff? Ms. Foster?
Philip, if we would approve this rezoning, is there anything to prevent the owner from removing eventually that single-family home on the south portion of the parcel and putting in more duplexes?
No, they could remove it. This would, I'm not sure we could legally say that that home has to stay, because at some point it could go into disrepair. But the way the zoning is, they could remove it and they could put more dwelling units in as long as they don't breach the 17.4 dwelling units per acre. That would become the governing. Right now, the way the protective overlay is written, it only restricts duplexes, and then it would have the density cap of the zoning. One way you could control that is in the protective overlay, restrict the density of MF18 down to not allow more dwelling units than what are currently proposed on the site. So it's, I think, 10 point something dwelling units per acre with the 4 proposed duplexes in the single-family home. The staff report says it equates about 10.7 dwelling units per acre if it were to be built out how the site plan shows. So it's something you could consider is in the protective overlay. You could restrict the density down from 17.4 to something else to restrict the number of dwelling units on the site in the future.
I think I was the one that asked to hear this case, and I had no problem with the case, and you've already answered the questions that I had concerning that driveway to the north, and then also the landscaping, which I guess we will be seeing at a later date. So,
Any other questions? Applicant or agent, please.
Kirk Miller, I'm the agent. I'd be glad to answer any questions. Just from doing a quick math, it looks like if they tore down that house, they could probably put in 2 duplexes without exceeding the maximum number of units on the property.
Any questions, the agent? Thank you. Anybody virtual want to speak on this item? Anyone virtual want to speak on this item? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to commission.
Move we approve per staff comment?
Second?
Got a motion to approve by Mr. Green, second by Mr. Warren. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? We don't have any non-public hearing items? Any other matters? If not, we're adjourned.